Welcome to Beyond Belief, Tales of Religious Exodus, where we delve into the personal journeys of people who've left fundamentalist religions. In this series, we explore their experiences within religion, their journey out, and how they found meaning and healing on the other side.
All right, David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Shalom Tzvi. I guess I saw your message on, we're both a part of this subreddit called X-Jew. I know, very dramatic. I think it's more geared, it's geared for people who are not necessarily, it could be some of them have left Judaism in general, but I think a lot of the people on the group have left the Hasidic community, Haredi communities, Modocs, Chabad, insert here, but
yeah,
I was really happy to see your post, and I've never talked about this on a show before in like this kind of setting. So I was really excited to see your post, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. XJew is so much fun. It's so random. I love Reddit. Reddit is my social media platform of choice.
Oh yeah. Big
and I've got a while ago, I actually published a Cards Against Humanity parody called Cure versus Orthodoxy, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was right at the beginning of COVID. It had hit, so
wow.
I was bored.
I have to find that one.
Yeah, so it's on my site, Freedom Fighter. You can look it up over there.
Oh, so it's Freedom and not Freedom.
Exactly, that's the plan.
From Freed.
And
Gotcha.
it's a play on like fry, and so for a few years, Google kept autocorrecting, and I think they finally got the message, like we're Freedom Fighters here to stay. But yeah, it was XJew, I think, really helped it take off. Like there was all this anonymous interest from people, I don't know their real names, but they were all really into it, and it was very encouraging. And some of my more popular posts I've posted there and gotten really good feedback. So I'm very grateful to that specific community, most of whom I don't know who they are, but they're still... It's fascinating, the anonymity and the people who emerge from the woodwork. I do hypnosis work, and I found clients from there. Yeah, so it's a whole world. But yeah, enough about me and my love for Reddit. Although I will say that ex-Christian and ex-Mormon are all fascinating ones. So back to you.
I'm not a part of those. Oh, well,
Sorry,
okay,
yeah,
sorry. I was frozen for a second. No worries. Yeah, I'm not a part of the other ones. I guess I never thought to join. I mean, I guess they'd let me in.
They probably. Reddit is Reddit. You can browse freely.
Right.
I think part of it is that we don't always know all the inside lingo from these other things.
Right.
And one of the things I'm curious about with this podcast is I'm excited to interview people from other faiths too. So that's one thing I
love that. Well, how did you? What was the origin of the show?
Yeah, this is brand new. So you're you're the third person. Okay, so we're all
honored. I'm really honored to be here.
I appreciate you being. Some people are like, "What's it going to be about?" And you just dove right in. You're like, I'm going to be there. We'll talk. And so the origin. So my arc, very briefly, is that I grew up Haredi myself, and I'll probably at some point have somebody interview me so I could have my story on the show. And when I first left, I was really angry, and I'm a writer by hobby, I guess, and so I wrote all these really satirical, really angry articles, and they were parody, and they always used humor. And I had trained as a therapist years ago, but for a while it was no place to do therapy. And I would say that over, it's been 8 years now, and my healing journey is such that I'm not nearly as angry, and I'm not nearly as bitter or something like that. And there's a sort of shift from the raw getting out of my own system to this desire, and it like overlaps with therapy. In fact, I'm kind of launching this podcast to coincide with Mental Health Awareness Month, which starts tomorrow. And this sort of religion fucks up so many people, not just me. And there was this desire from, I would say, mid-level to like really give voice to other people and what they've gone through, so that it's not just about me, but exposing all the other stuff that people go through, sometimes a lot worse than myself, and also giving it an arc around healing. Like, what do people who have gone through it, what has their journey been like, so other people can resonate with that and maybe even look back and say, here's what I would do, and this is my advice to other people who are on the same path. So to try to build almost like a virtual community, give voice to what other people are going through. I could share that I've done Footsteps. It's a really cool organization out of New York that supports mostly religious Jews who leave religion. And Footsteps, 1 year I did a retreat with them, and they had an event where they had like 3 of their members get up and tell their stories. And I found it really meaningful, both in like, oh, I guess my story is not that bad. They've had it way worse. But also I feel heard. I feel I resonate with it. And so there are others podcasts, I think, that interview people to talk about their upbringing and stuff like that. But for me, the arc of what you've been through and how you got to the other side, whatever the other side means to you right now, I think that I'm particularly curious about the whole beginning, middle, and end of it all.
I think that's fascinating, and to your point, I think that will involve a little bit of the upbringing as well. So you're kind of bridging everything and bringing it all together, which I really admire what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, what I'm curious, and I'd love for you to talk about your own upbringing, I really want to see it from your lens. So it's less about like some sociological exploration. Tell me what it's like to be an Orthodox Jew. I would rather tell me what it was like for you. And it's a very personal, very subjective journeys, because that's really what it is. And in fact, religion is guilty of grouping everybody together into one big mass. And that's one of the things that I've struggled and many people struggle with the most, the lack of individuality. So deliberately going to that place of like, yeah, what was it for you? And with all that, I'm very curious. You have a very interesting background that you alluded to in our conversation. So I would love if you could begin by just, what was your upbringing like?
Yeah. So grew up pretty secular. My dad is from Israel. He grew up Chiloni, never had a bar mitzvah. His dad was in the original IDF, the Haganah, from 1948 until 1973. His mom was an army nurse till the day she died, and my father flew in the Air Force. Actually, crazy story. He was flying in the first Lebanon War, and the Arabs shot down his plane. He wasn't a fighter pilot. I think he was flying cargo, but they shot down his plane and they were looking for him, and they teach certain parts of the army, certain people to do certain animal noises to get out of certain situations, and he made a rattlesnake noise while hiding in the field, and they were like, "Can I curse on here?"
Yeah.
So he made a rattlesnake noise, and the Lebanese soldiers were like, "Let's get the fuck out of here. We don't want to get bitten by that snake." And here I am telling you that story today, So, but again, like very Chiloni, very modern, very just not really having anything to do with the religious parts of Judaism. And my mother was more traditional, conservative, I guess you would say, from Cuba, went to Miami. And
Cuba as in Cuban Jewish, or did she convert?
Yeah. No. I'm Jewish on both sides. Okay. I'm a Juban.
Juban. I've never even heard of Cuban Jews. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, my grandmother and my grandfather started a major Cuban Jewish shul in Miami Beach, and I think the most amazing thing is, and we'll get to this later as well. Like I'm in an interfaith relationship with a wonderful, beautiful Catholic girl, and her nana, who just recently passed away, her nana also started a major church in Boca Raton, Florida. So both of our grandparents started major religious institutions, which is, I think, pretty phenomenal. And one of the scary similarities within our family, like striking similarities within our families. It's amazing. So that being said, we weren't really observant. Me and my two sisters were born, and I think at one point my parents were like, we want to keep kosher inside the house, but not really outside the house. And then when I was around 8 years old, we were. Have you ever heard of the Shul in Bell Harbor? The Shul.
I think I have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big Chabad institute, big Chabad center, and that was our shul of choice. We would go there, but on Saturday mornings, we would go to shul on Shabbos, and then my dad would fly his airplane, on Shabbos morning. We'd go to shul, and then after shul, we'd go to Publix, which is a grocery store in South Florida, and that's how it was. And then when I was around 8 years old, that's when we started becoming frum. It was very slowly. It wasn't like a 0 to 60 in 2 seconds kind of thing. It was probably over the course of 2 or 3 years that first we stopped using the car on Shabbos. Then we stopped using the computer. Then we stopped using the TV. Then we got an extra sink. And then we got another oven. And then we got another dishwasher. And then slowly but surely, over the course of 2 or 3 years, we became... I like to say that we were a mix of modern Orthodox and Chabad, because we became frum through Chabad, but we weren't really stark, I wasn't going to yeshiva. I was going to a Jewish day school. My parents tried to put me in yeshiva, but I think we all realized that wasn't going to work, because a lot of these yeshivas, and I'm sure you'll talk about this with some of your other guests as well. Just for all the listeners, a lot of these yeshivas are not accredited, like are not equipped to give, secular education. And usually, if they have it, it's very minimal and just very not advanced. And it was a joke, this yeshiva that I went to. And my parents understood that too. They weren't naive, and they wanted me to get an education. And I think that's where the modern Orthodox, and I grew up doing theater as well, so we were very cultured as well. So, and I loved, and I talk about this all the time. I loved being frum. Growing up, I loved being frum. Studied for my bar mitzvah for 2 years. Learned trope. I was completely. I didn't make one single fucking mistake on the bima. And I learned Kabbalah Shabbos. I learned Shachris. I learned Musa. And I loved it. And I still have this email, mishnakid@hotmail.com. It's just like that's I was memorizing Mishnayos and stuff growing up, and I loved it. I really, really loved being being Orthodox. Every so often, I'd be like, oh, I wish I could go to this show on Shabbos. Like my family loves the singer Andrea Bocelli, but he would always play on Friday nights or on Yontif or whatever, so we couldn't go. And there were things that. And it really started to affect me. When I when I was in high school. I switched from a Jewish day school to kind of a public school, a charter school. It was an arts charter school. Like they had different, concentrations that you could focus on, and a lot of the events and a lot of the activities were on Shabbos or Yontif. My senior year, I did not go to prom because it was on a Friday night. I did not go on senior trip because obviously it was a whole weekend. I didn't even walk in graduation because it was on Erev Shavuos. So it got to be very frustrating sometimes, but I always looked past it because I loved taking that, during the summer, that 7-hour Shabbos nap, and I loved, after my bar mitzvah, I would they would ask me to be chazan at shul probably 2 or 3 times a month, probably even more often than that. Shachris, Musaf, Kabbalah Shabbos, and I really loved it. I mean, I think now I realize that I loved singing in front of people more, and but I really felt like I had a lot of kavana in my davening, and I was shuckling, I was doing this, and everything, but it was probably, if I had to put a start date on when my kind of slow burn away from Orthodoxy started, it was in the spring, late winter of 2014. I was at Yeshiva University, didn't want to be there, just wanted to be in New York. And there was the only school that accepted me. Honestly, they only accepted me because I was Jewish and they needed the money. There was absolutely no reason for them to accept me into the school because my SAT scores were shit, my grades were shit. But, Bernie Madoff fucked YU so badly, so God knows they need the money. And, so I'm Jewish, so why not? Baruch Hashem. Goodbye and good luck. So...
Can I interject? Why were your grades so bad? You seem like you could have been a good student.
I was a major fuck up. I mean, all I wanted to do, and I love watching television. Mix that with I really don't like school. All I wanted to do when I got home, because I'm me and my girlfriend were both actors and creatives and stuff. So I was doing a lot of shows growing up at community theater, and I wouldn't get home until like 9:30 at night, sometimes even 11. Depending on what time rehearsal started. And then the last thing I would want to do when I get home is do homework. And I really didn't like school. I don't like studying. I don't like doing research papers. I don't like any of it. And so all of my arts classes in high school, those were great. Those were awesome. Really good grades. But, I mean, science, horrible. Math, horrible.
I love it.
Oh, my God. Like,
when
AP
you were
literature, horrible.
What we saying, Lashon Hara?
No, oh my God, literally. AP literature, horrible. I mean, like,
okay.
I was forced into that class too, which was bunch of bullshit, but I mean, it is
Right,
what it
right.
is. But
When you were doing theater and there was women opposite you and probably not even Jewish, what was your interaction then? Were you able to like touch? What was your
well,
standards?
incidentally, the director that I did most of my theater growing up with was the director of the theater program at the Jewish day school I went to growing up, and we were connected to a JCC, like literally by a gate. And he left at one point, and he moved to the JCC, and he's a frum Jew. So we never, I mean, it was never really a problem, you know. So I never really dealt with that because, I mean, we would do, we definitely did shows with men and women together. It wasn't, it was a frum program, but not to the point where it was all men or all female or this and that. Like, you know, we did, oh my God. I mean, just in my senior year, we did The Wizard of Oz, Fiddler on the Roof. We did like heavy, and we did some like heavy controversial plays and musicals as well. And if there was ever a kiss, you know, I think he would always leave it to us. Like if we felt comfortable doing it, he had no problem with it.
Okay.
What's funny is my parents really, and he would never. This guy, it's this guy and his wife, and the music director was also a frum Jew as well. They never forced us to wear yarmulkes on stage. Probably even the opposite, because if an audience sees a yarmulke, like it takes everyone out of the play or whatever. But when I was doing The Sound of Music, I was playing Kurt, one of the little, like, you know, one of the Von Trapp family, one of the Von Trapp children. My parents really wanted me to wear a yarmulke on stage. And it's funny because every single show I had done before then, I guess I ended up wearing a hat or a yarmulke on stage as part of the character. So this was the first show that I wasn't wearing a yarmulke, and I didn't want to wear a yarmulke on stage. The director didn't want me wearing a yarmulke on stage. My parents really wanted me to, and at one point the director suggested that I wear a hair kippah, and my parents exploded at that. They were like, "Absolutely not, no way." I eventually cut a small, like, kind of like this big yarmulke out of a real yarmulke and wore it on my head for the duration of the run of the show. So even when we did Fiddler on the Roof, I was Tevye, and the girl who was playing Golda, when we sang, do you know the music from the show?
The If I Were a Rich Man or whatever, that's the...
Do you know the song Do You Love Me? Do you love me? Do I what? So Tevye and Golda are having this realization that they don't know if they actually love each other, and they sing this beautiful, I'm getting goosebumps, beautiful, heartbreaking, but ultimately beautiful song, that they realize that they do love each other. They didn't meet each other until their wedding day. And so at the end of the song, I kissed her on the forehead, I held her hand. So even these religious characters, where even like after marriage, you know, touching isn't really a thing, you know, definitely not hand holding, you know. So long-winded answer to your question, it really it wasn't something that ever came up.
Cool.
Yeah.
It just gives more of a context into
no,
things.
of course.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so fast forward, you're in YU, you've got shit grades, but you made it.
Yeah, I made it. And so there was this one, I would never spend Shabbos on campus. I would always go to my sister on the Upper West Side because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to spend any more time there than I needed to. So I would always go to my sisters and brother-in-law, well, now brother-in-law, for Shabbos. But a couple of Shabbos I had to spend on campus, and one of them, this was the first time I ever really purposefully really used electronics on Shabbos. Started using my computer, and my roommate, it was on a Saturday, Shabbos afternoon, my roommate walked in, and I shut my computer down. And I mean, I'll never forget, I mean, he said to me, "David, you're better than this. Come on, let's go on a Shabbos walk. Let's walk to Mincha." You know, yeah, it was like 5:30 or whatever, 3:00 in the afternoon. So Shabbos was ending early. So let's go to Mincha. Let's take a walk. You're better than this. And that was the beginning of the end. No, but that was really the real beginning of the transition out of the Orthodoxy for me. And then I moved back to Miami after 1 year because I was dismissed from yeshiva. Horrible grades. So I was dismissed, and I lived at home for 2 years doing theater, going to community college, and I was just really exposed to a lot of different types of people, different religions, different colors. different ethnicities, different backgrounds, and the bubble just kept popping. But I was still kind of almost forcing myself to stay into the bubble because I felt like I needed to for whatever reason. I didn't know what the reason was back then. And then I moved to New Jersey and went to Rutgers University in Newark. And they're really, I wasn't living at home. I wasn't even living in the same state as my family. And the bubble just kept popping. But I was still kind of, I don't know, because I was davening every morning at this company right across the street from my apartment. There was a big working Jewish community. I ended up becoming their Baal Koreh, Baal Tefillah, which I always did that. I always kind of inserted myself, which people never minded because no one else wanted to do it themselves. So, but then I started meeting more people, and the bubble kept popping, but I kept fixing the bubble because, again, I didn't know why I was doing that. I was doing it for some reason that I didn't know why. And then I got a major crush on this Italian Catholic girl. And that was when the bubble really started popping, and I really started not really fixing it. It's kind of a little bit, but and then COVID happened. But then I met my now girlfriend, and the bubble started really popping and really popping and really popping and really popping. And so eventually me and my girlfriend started dating. But we've broken up twice because of, really mostly because of me and my family, because I couldn't stand up to my family and tell them, and this is when I realized I don't want to be Orthodox anymore. I wasn't keeping kosher outside the house for a long time. It was a very, very slow progression. I skipped over a lot of things, but I stopped keeping kosher inside the house. I started, using, I remember the first time I did a recreational activity. Like I went to a Broadway show on Shabbat. Me and my girlfriend do a Jersey Boys podcast, and I happened to go see Jersey Boys. That was the first show I ever saw on a Friday night. I was shaking the entire time. It was crazy. It was like, am I supposed to be doing this? I feel like I am. It was kind of like the... I don't know if this actually happened, but I have this vague memory. First time I walked into a church in high school when I was singing in choir. As I stepped over the threshold into the church, I kind of went like this to see if I was going to be smote down by the fires of hell. But no, nothing happened, and I'm still here. And I've stepped into many churches since then. I'm still standing. And so it was probably over the period of 10 years that I really, I kept popping the bubble and kept repairing the bubble. Popped the bubble more and repaired it more until I didn't want to repair it anymore.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so that's quite the arc. It's a very long journey, which I think a lot of people have. It's really a long time. And I have so many questions to fill in those blanks. But my first and biggest one is, now with that perspective of 10 years, looking back, what was going on for you at that time? What was keeping you in? And what was eventually the draw out on that macro level?
Well, I think at the root of it, the core of it is my parents. I was doing it for them. At one point, the transition happened when I wasn't doing it for me anymore, and I was doing it for them. And that's, the progression of that is when you're doing something that you don't want to for somebody else. There's only so much you can, there's only so long that you can do that for. So, Like I said, I loved being frum. It was forced on me, but not in a bad way, because I was young, I was below 18 years old, so of course, I had to do whatever my parents say, but it wasn't something that I was forced into. I loved doing it, but it wasn't. At one point, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm only doing this for you.
So do you feel like you loved it at a certain stage in your life, and then you sort of outgrew it? Would you describe it that way?
I think so, because once I started actually thinking about the tenets of the Orthodoxy too, and all the it became really disgusting to me to think about how kind of holier than art thou Orthodox people are, and the things that people say, and the ideas. I mean, I can go on and on and on about how ridiculous I think some of the mitzvahs are. I mean, the one that bothers me the most is that the matriarchal idea of Judaism, that mom has to be Jewish for the kid to be Jewish. This makes so much sense to me why they implemented that rule, because so much of Judaism is kind of disguising, kind of not really telling you that women are second class, but they say, oh, Eshes Chayil, what about Eshes Chayil? What about all these things? All the, women are special. They don't have to do they don't have to put on tefillin. They don't have to pray 3 times a day. But it's like, what's the real reason here? All the tznius, right? All those laws exist is because men can't keep it in their fucking pants, right? So why is there a double standard? Why can a Jewish woman, marry any man she wants and still her kids are Jewish, but a man needs to marry a Jewish woman? It's such a double standard, and it's a big, that's probably the one that affected me the most. And we went to an Orthodox synagogue for Yom Kippur in 2021, and it's crazy. They can smell you. Especially the women, they can fucking smell you. And I felt so bad for my girlfriend. She was there. She was wearing very tznius clothing, long sleeve dress, goes all the way down. And they were like, oh, where are you from? What school did you go? They can smell you. It's fucking crazy. So I'm sorry.
So
Where
you're
were
saying,
we?
yeah, you're understanding. Yeah, you're saying one of the commandment around the matriarchal. You're saying that commandment is to keep the men in line. So the man is forced to not marry whoever he wants. He's got to marry Jewish. It's another way in which it kind of. Yeah.
So it's like all of these things that I started thinking about, and it's like, wow, this is not normal. Why? And I'm sure you've heard this too. I've heard so many times walking into a reform or conservative synagogue is just as bad as walking into a church. Why? Why are reform or conservative conversions not accepted by the Orthodoxy? Okay, fine. We want someone who's here for the long run. We don't want someone who's converting from marriage. You can say anything you want, but at one point, when are you going to realize that you are alienating your own people? Why do oppressed people oppress the oppressed? I don't understand. So that was the biggest thing for me, is that I started realizing, listen, every religion is going to have people that question it, and it's going to have, but for me, I just this doesn't make any sense to me that we would. But even conservative and reform people are not supportive of other Jews, and it's like, it gets me really, really upset.
Yeah.
So kind of something that I mentioned earlier, in our conversation before we started, is that I don't, even in the conservative and reform world, I don't even know where I stand as a Jewish person, because there's not a lot in Judaism as far as the groups and the denominations that I connect with right now, and I'm really trying to find where I belong and find where I fit.
So that's I was going to ask you, how do you identify right now? Like, how do you belong to, how do you see yourself?
That's a good question. I mean, I'll answer that by saying that I just had a dream about Jesus last year. So my girlfriend's Catholic, and so we really embrace each other's religions. So I don't know where I stand with Judaism, but not only that, I had a dream about Jesus. Have you heard of the show The Chosen, the TV show?
No.
So it's the first and only, existing right now, multi-season series about Jesus Christ and his life. And it doesn't just start with, the big week, the Holy Week. It starts like 3 years before any of the big action ever happened. So you see him collect all the apostles. You see him reach everyone. And I had a dream. I had been really, really watching it, and I had a dream. The guy playing Jesus in the show appeared to me as Jesus in my dream. And in my dream, I was King David. It was David HaMelech. And David HaMelech was an apostle, which is not historically accurate at all, because David HaMelech was alive 70 to 80 years before Jesus Christ anyway. But David HaMelech was an apostle, and I was David HaMelech, and David HaMelech, and I, as Jesus told me that I was going to be a very important part of his mission. And it's funny, in the dream I kept self-sabotaging myself, and I kept not committing to Jesus fully because I'm Jewish. This seems really weird to me. So I don't know, it's a very heavy dream for me, and I still don't quite know what it means yet. But I still don't also completely know where I stand. I mean, I love Judaism. I love Israel. I am pro-Israel. I am pro-peace. That's what I am, pro-Israel, and I am pro-Palestine. I just want everyone to live together in peace and harmony. I don't want anyone. That's it. So. But I don't observe any mitzvahs. I don't keep Shabbos. I don't keep Yontif. I mean, this whole Pesach, I've been eating chametz, so I don't know. It's really weird. And a friend of my girlfriend and me is converting to Judaism now, and he's converting Reform, but he's still getting kickback from other Jews saying that he's not a real Jew. And it's like, how could you say that to someone? How could you? And then someone else said, someone who's Chabad said to him, maybe it's better if you are ally from afar. What? How? Do you really not want anyone else joining you? Like, I mean, why? It makes me really upset. It really does make me really upset.
And is that because of an underlying value of like inclusivity, where there's a feeling like the desire for as many people to belong? What is the underlying value for you that upsets you about the way, Reform, conservative, and especially Orthodox have this sort of holier than thou, you mentioned, that kind of thing?
Well, I think it goes as far as the whole chosen people idea. That the whole chosen people idea is so arrogant. I know where it comes from. I heard the story a million times. So, but that doesn't make us. Why are we more special? I asked my rabbi once, why are the Jews the chosen people? He danced around that fucking question for an hour. He never gave me an answer. And he started quoting the Kabbalah and the Zohar and these answers that, you're not really going to understand this right now. But he never gave me an answer to the question. So I think the gatekeeping, the whole, you have to ask a rabbi 3 times, like the rabbi has to shoo you away. What? Yeah, the especially discriminating against other Jews. It's just, why are we creating this hostile environment? Because it honestly, it doesn't make us look good. It doesn't make us look good. Right around October 7th last year, I don't know if you saw this. Right around October 7th, there was a video circulating about these Haredi Jews walking in the old city, and these Christians were there walking through the old city as well, carrying a cross. They were making a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and the Haredi people, including kids, were spitting on the feet, on the ground of the Christian people. And it's like, no wonder the world hates us right now. No fucking wonder. And like, that's one of the reasons. Not saying, because like obviously baseless anti-Semitism is a real thing, and I don't want to discount anything else that's going on right now. But that is one of the reasons why people don't. Because look at the disrespect that we show people, and that doesn't sit well with me at all.
I hear you. Yeah. There, flipping the script for a second, is there anything that you missed? Because I remember there was a time you really loved it. from where you are today, is there something you really miss from religious lifestyle, orthodoxy, anything like that?
There's not much.
Not
There's
much you
not much
miss.
that I miss. I love eating cheeseburgers. I love doing all that now. So it's like I missed that. I missed that while I was
Retroactively. Yeah.
right. Exactly. But I guess I really enjoyed, on Friday night and Saturday and Yontif. But kind of a fucked up story. I was thinking about applying to cantorial school here in New York. And are you in New York, by the way?
I'm near Toronto, up in Canada.
Toronto.
Near Buffalo is
Gotcha.
the closest New York City.
Gotcha. Cool. So there's three major schools for chazanut here. There's the Bells School of Music at YU, which is Orthodox, which obviously was not interested in that anymore. There is Hebrew Union College, which has a cantorial school, which is Reform. And then there's a JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is more conservative and traditional. And I met with an admissions advisor from Hebrew Union, and it was a great conversation. They were like, let's arrange a visit for you to go to the school, and let's do it. And it was great. I'll say this because it's kind of important. I didn't think to mention my Catholic girlfriend during this interview. That's very important. And so now I'm meeting with someone from JTS because I really wanted to make an informed decision of where I wanted to go. And I had plans to meet with someone else who went to Hebrew Union just to see what their experiences were. But I met with this guy from JTS, and from the conversation, it seemed like the program was more religious. So I did feel the need to mention my Catholic girlfriend. And suddenly, the conversation stopped, took a completely different turn. I'm sorry, this program and Hebrew Union, we do not ordain people who are in interfaith relationships.
Hebrew Union doesn't.
Not even Hebrew Union doesn't.
Okay, because you would think Reform, they're pretty chill about that kind of stuff.
And they made this whole thing. They're pluralistic, very LGBTQ friendly. They will ordain people who are transgender, who are gay, but they will not ordain people who are in interfaith relationships unless the partner is planning on converting anytime soon.
Right.
And he made that very clear to me. And suddenly things kind of started to click for me. I had not heard from the admissions advisor from Hebrew Union in about a week. And I kept sending her follow-up emails. And it kind of clicked for me. I think she found me on social media. She wanted to see what I was all about. Saw that I had a Catholic girlfriend and ghosted me. I don't see any other reason why she would ghost me like that.
But you said they said outright that they weren't interested in you, Hebrew Union.
JTS.
JTS said outright. Hebrew Union ghosted you.
Right.
Okay.
But then I realized this is the only reason why they had to have ghosted me.
Interesting.
Because they were so responsive and everything. And so at the end of the conversation, the guy at JTS was like, okay, listen, if anything changes, let me know. Implying that if
you break up.
Girlfriend,
yeah.
Right, exactly. Or if she converts. And so I said, nothing is going to be changing. Thank you very much.
Right.
And I left the call. And so, but then I just that pushes me further away.
Yeah.
And that pushes me further away, not only from Orthodoxy, but from conservative and Reform also.
Yeah.
And I don't, with all the pluralism and all of, even there's this big Reform synagogue here in New York called Central Synagogue, will marry people who are not, who are interfaith relation, in shul, they will marry them. But it's like, why is there discrimination against Jews? No matter where they're from, why is there always a... It gets me really, really upset, and I've been diving into Catholicism. Mm-hmm. I've been diving into it. I binged the entire first season of The Chosen in less than a day. I binged the whole series of what was available online in less than a month. They just released the 4th season earlier this year in theaters. Like, theatrical release. Me and my girlfriend watched it. And I am just fascinated. And the biggest thing that fascinates me about Christianity is this focus on God's love and just love in general. There's a Christian vocal group called the Gaither Vocal Band that I listen to a lot. They're kind of all exclusively what I listen to right now. There's this song that they sing called Reckless Love. That God's love is reckless and will give it to anyone and everyone. There is absolutely no idea like that in Judaism. Absolutely not. And the God of the Old Testament, who is the same God that Jews believe in now. I think the conservative and reform movement have adopted a more loving God, but that's based off of Jesus, but it's still pretty much the same God because we don't have the New Testament. But when you're focused, and I'm watching in The Chosen right now, like a lot of the Kohanim who are in the show, or depicted in historically, and a lot of the Rebbeim, they're just like, the big idea is, why are we focused on how much did we give for Meiser Truma this year more than how we treat each other? Why did Rabbi Akiva's students die in those 7 weeks of the Omer, right? Because of baseless hate for one another. Why are we so focused on mitzvahs rather than loving each other? Why are we so focused on mitzvahs and discriminating against different Jews instead of bringing everyone together?
Yeah.
So, I'm so sorry for your editing. You're going to edit.
It's not going to be edited. This is it. This is
this is it? Okay,
shot.
good. Baruch Hashem,
Yeah.
I love it. That makes me feel a little better.
Perfect, exactly. And so I was going to ask you, as a follow-up to that, is it's interesting that amidst all this journey, you were still interested in becoming a cantor. So let's assume they didn't completely turn you off from those types of attitudes. Would part of you still want to be a cantor, considering all of...
100%, because I am more than... I love singing. And I do love Jewish music because I grew up on it. I still love it. Like, I love listening. Do you know the chief cantor of the IDF, Shai Abramson?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
One of the most beautiful voices. You have to listen to his Unetana Tokef and his Mishaberach for the Israeli soldiers. So beautiful. I love listening to him, and I love singing Jewish music because it's all about the kavanah and what the kavanah means to me. But more than that, in the conservative and reform movement, the chazan is just as much a spiritual advisor as the rabbi is as well. So you're a singer, but also you are a spiritual advisor for people, and that's what I love. I don't love giving advice to people. I love being a mentor, and I love paying it forward to people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that really drove me towards being a cantor, but in the more conservative and reform worlds, because that's not the case in the Orthodox world. In the Orthodox world, you're Yitzchak Meir Halfgat, you show up, you sing beautifully, and you leave, and that's it.
Right.
Not to say, some of the most amazing cantors have come out of the Orthodox. My family is good friends with Yitzchak Meir Halfgat, and I've gotten to hear his slichos many, many times, and his voice reaches Shemayim and reaches God, and it's just so beautiful. But it's not the same. It's just not the same kind of role.
Yeah. Perfect. And so, continuing with that line of being a mentor, stuff like that, has there been anything that you've brought in to your life? Orthodoxy especially, but Judaism in general, it offers a sort of meaning construct. And I'm curious if you've had to replace that with anything of your own that instead, essentially.
Can you rephrase that because I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I'll rephrase that. Have you needed to create new sources of meaning in your life?
Honestly, and I've only just started accepting this myself. I've really been leaning into Christianity and
Okay.
Catholicism.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, but that's kind of where I am right now, and I really, and just like any religion, they're gonna be people who have problems with their churches, with their synagogues, but the core idea of love and understanding and compassion of Christianity has kind of hijacked everything for me.
Yeah, I hear that. Has your girlfriend's relationship with Christianity, with Catholicism, is much more whole, I guess, hasn't had the same trials and tribulations, if you will, that you've had with Judaism?
I would venture to say, yeah, it's been more whole. She went to Catholic school growing up, and she absolutely loved it, which I loved going to Jewish school too. But no, she never really had any push and pull. There's some priests that she listened to that she doesn't like. We don't go to church every Sunday, and her mom doesn't. Her mom and stepdad don't go to church every Sunday, but it definitely hasn't been as fraught as my relationship with religion has been.
Yeah, I hear that. And I guess a follow-up question, it's a bit tangential, but I'm still curious. Amongst all of Christianity, there's so many different denominations, and your girlfriend happens to be Catholic. To me, when I think Catholic, I think the most diehard. If I had to think, yes, Christianity is a religion of love, but, and again, I'm ignorant here with a lot of Jewish stereotypes, but of all the Christian love, Catholics have the least. That's my association. I associate it with the most amount of rules, with the most amount of things. And if I had to guess, it would be like Protestant, where it's mostly, once a year and you can live with Jesus the rest of the time. I'm curious for you if there's been an exploration of different kinds of Christianity and what Catholicism, I guess, briefly means to you.
Yeah, and I think you'd be right. Catholicism is probably, I don't know if it is the strictest one, because I think it really all depends on the person and the community and the priest and the pastor, insert religious leader here in different denominations. But the Gaither vocal band, who I mentioned earlier, they're Southern Baptist, but you just know that they're very devout Christians. So even just listening to the prayers during the Mass, it's just so much different from Judaism. There's still that idea of love. So, and I think it really, and I know I don't want to repeat myself, it really all depends on the family. Like, not every family keeps every single rule, and just like in Judaism too. So,
yeah,
I guess on paper, yeah, but I don't know. It's I'm trying not to get too jumbled here. It really all depends on the person and the family.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm just going to say this out loud. It's fascinating. There will be people on this show, and I've met also as a hypnotist, people who've been royally fucked by Christianity,
sure,
right?
No, big time.
And so
big time.
it's going to be, this is going to go on the show, right? And it is, because I value different voices, and I want each voice stands on its own. I just kind of want to make a note of that. It's going to be an interesting contrast as more episodes accumulate. Yeah,
100%. And because it's like that with Islam and Christianity and Judaism, depending on what kind of a rule follower you are and how much of the tradition you keep, it's gonna fuck you up. It's gonna fuck you up when you eventually realize what it's done to you, if you do come to that realization.
Yeah.
Some people don't. I mean, we have this. It's so funny. We have this friend who grew up very Chiloni, grew up with families very anti-religion, but she started dating this Orthodox guy from the Five Towns, and she became more frum for him, not for him. Like, I mean, I think essentially it was because it was a deal breaker. She had to be frum, but she wanted to as well because she loved it and she loved him, and she is now more frum. So, and I am of the opinion of, if you don't shove anything down my throat, I'm not going to shove anything down your throat. We have Orthodox friends. We have Catholic friends who are not really so much Catholic anymore, who are more so it really all depends, but you're absolutely right. It has fucked so many people up. Our friend who really helped me leave the Orthodoxy, she had left Mormonism and was going through the exact same thing I was going through. And she was really, really, and I'm so grateful to her for really giving me that push.
Amazing. So let's talk more about that. A couple things that come up for me. One is, you mentioned this briefly, but I want to expand on it, depending on how much of a rule follower you are. So do you believe that one of the keys to kind of surviving within a religion of any kind is the ability to disregard the parts you don't like and not be swept up in all of its minutia?
I think so. Yeah. I think for you, and I think that happens with anything. With anything that you do, you have to find what works for you. Let's say you're a singer and you're kind of being forced to sing this. And this happened to me. It's actually happened to me. You're kind of forced to learn how to sing a certain way, but it's actually damaging your voice. You can't sing that way anymore. So if you're pursuing any sort of religion, but you're doing things that you're not comfortable doing, whether you understand them or not, especially if you understand them, if you're not comfortable with it, you have to workshop until you find something that works for you, because, other than that, you're kind of, what's that Hebrew phrase, going through the motions? There's a Hebrew phrase for it. I'm kind of forgetting what it, I guess, like without any kavana, I guess. I can't think of the exact phrase, but without any kavana, without any sort of or, with any light, I guess. So to answer your question, yeah.
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So we're getting towards the last few questions. I'm just kind of piecing it all together.
Do you mind if I have to plug in my laptop?
Go for it, yeah.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry. This has been a great interview, by the way.
Amazing.
I am very... You're really, really good at what you do.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know that.
I appreciate that, because it's brand new to me. This is literally, I think, my third ever podcast.
It feels like you've been doing this for years.
Amazing, thanks. I joke this. I think this transferable skills from therapy is podcast interviewing, not just therapy in front of a microphone that gets broadcasted to many people. So I think that, and that's the part I enjoy the most. And this is the kind of, I like when it gets personal. I like when it's about the meaning, right? So I've crafted this around my own interest, essentially. I get
big time.
Yeah, exactly. So
You're doing amazing work, very important work, and thank you for having me on again.
For sure. And so the last few things I really touch upon, this is a perfect tie-in. A part of me is really curious about the social aspect of leaving and those supports. And so you mentioned a friend who was really helpful to you. Can you expand a bit broadly on what it was like socially, I guess, to be religious? Do you need to get a whole new group of friends? What role does community play in coming to the other side?
I was just talking about this with my girlfriend. It's amazing, the looks and the stares of almost kind of pity that I get from people who knew me when I was Orthodox and know me now that I'm not. Especially like the adults in my life who were kind of like my mentors when I was going through some shit, people avoid you. People start to avoid you. And it's kind of like, okay, that's fine with me, honestly. Because I used to be the gabbai of a shtibel, a house minyan, if you would, for all the listeners out there. I used to be the gabbai of a house minyan, and I used to send the times for Mincha, Kabbalah, Shabbos, Shachris every week, for the minyan. And then I just stopped when I kind of pulled it in. And whenever I see anyone from that house minyan, it's kind of like really, really awkward, because sometimes some of them don't know where I am in life right now. And then God knows what they say behind my back. But people have said the craziest shit to me and my girlfriend, I hate the word shiksa. I'm just going to put that out there. I hate the word shiksa. For anyone who doesn't know, the word shiksa comes from the Hebrew word. Well, it's a derogatory term for a non-Jewish woman. It comes from the Hebrew word shagitz, which literally means abomination. So when you use the word shiksa, not great. So people say to me shit like shiksas are for practice. And what? What did you just say? Excuse me? And there were a lot of people who, I think more our age, that were cool with it. You know, even if they were Orthodox, you know, we still hang out with them. Because I think what's funny is some of them are kind of towing that line themselves of, you know, what are they? I did end up getting a new set of friends. You know, I adopted a lot of my girlfriend's friends, and, you know, they're amazing and very accepting, very supportive of us. But just going through life, meeting some new friends who know me now, and I tell them about who I was then, and, you know, they're fascinated by it. You know, they love listening to me say Hebrew words. You know, I find myself in such a weird place. Like, my girlfriend calls me an AP Jew because I'm not Orthodox, but I still know all the lingo.
So would that be advanced placement, like the university type of thing?
Right, exactly.
You're not in
like
university, but you got the credits.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I'm an AP Jew. And what's funny is her Nana, you know, rest in peace, she used to say that Christians are the completed Jew. Because, I mean, all the original followers of Jesus were Jewish. You know, Jesus himself was Jewish, you know, and they were still Jews, but they were practicing a different. So when it went, the whole thing of when it became Christianity wasn't until later, when this bishop named Paul kind of tied everything together and made it its own thing, because they were all Jews. So that was actually really funny, though, the complete Jew.
The complete. So what role did the friend who was a Mormon leaving Mormonism, what did she play for you? What role was that for you at that time?
She really saw what I was going through, and she really talked me through it, because she had been through the exact same thing, and she knew exactly what I was feeling. The sensate, like I was feeling like this, like pain in my stomach, because I was like, something is pulling me this way and that way. To quote a line from Jersey Boys, I'm being pulled 5 ways from Sunday. You know, I just she just knew it, and she just got it, and she was like, David, you have to trust this feeling because it's telling you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, I was talking, me and then eventually me and my girlfriend, we were talking with this rabbi who was nicknamed the Interfaith Rabbi. His name was Rabbi David Schaefer. He passed away on Erev Rosh Hashanah last year. Rest in peace. He was gonna be one of the officiants at our wedding, but he also really was like, I think he said something very profound to me. He said, "Do your parents love Orthodox Judaism more than they love you?" And I couldn't honestly answer him at the time because I didn't know. Everything was so fresh and raw for me, but that was one of the most profound things anyone could have ever said to me. And things are a lot better than they were with me and my family and our families. You know, Baruch Hashem, things are really, really good. And
so are your parents at this point? But what is the answer now? Do your parents support this relationship?
Yeah,
they do.
You know, we just went to Miami for Pesach. I think it's really telling that, you know, it's not, you know, she pays for both of our flights to come down. She's not forcing us or her to pay for her own flight. You know, she got us a hotel room in the program that they were at. You know, she wishes my girlfriend happy birthday. You know, condolences on her Nana when she passed away. So she loves us. She loves me. She loves her. It's just hard. I love my parents so much, and I give them so much credit for coming around as much as they've come around. It was hard. It was really, really hard.
For sure.
It was really hard.
How do you understand that arc? Your parents have a very interesting arc that I haven't quite experienced. They start out completely secular, maybe traditional. They get really religious, and then at some point, maybe they learn, maybe it took some time to accept you and your girlfriend. What was that journey for them as you look at it from the outside?
I will never know because they'll never really tell me.
You don't know what is it that drew them to religion more like that at some point?
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't understand I guess I didn't really understand you, but now I understand. I think they were just looking for more meaning in life when we became frum.
Yeah.
Between you and me, my dad doesn't really care that much. I mean, like I think he's doing it more for my mom too.
Okay.
But my mom is a huge believer in hashgacha pratis, divine intervention. Big on the Rebbe stories. You know, listen, some of these stories with the Rebbe are fascinating. You know, like mom comes to the Rebbe, says, "My child is dying." The Rebbe says, "Check your mezuzah," and like the shin or the yud is fucked up or whatever. Fix the mezuzah, and that's it. Like he was on a different level, and like the stories, his stories are crazy, and I believe they're true. You know, I do believe that they're true, and I'm a pretty big believer in hashgacha pratis too. You know, like I do believe that there is. I believe in God. I do believe in God. I believe there's a higher power, and I believe that a lot of things are meant to happen for a reason. You know, Gamzu Latov.
Do you believe that some denominations have like a better, I guess, access to what God really wants from us kind of thing? Do you see it in such a literal way?
I see it more in Christianity, because the whole, and there might be Christians who believe this too, but the whole eye for an eye thing, like of the Old Testament God of like, if you sin, he's watching every single fucking move that you're making, and everything. If I turn on a light on Shabbos, he's gonna directly do something that'll affect. No, I don't believe in that. I do think God is more accessible in other religions than Judaism.
Yeah. And so the final question, then a bonus question that I thought of just for you. Is there any words of wisdom that you would share with somebody who's maybe in the thick of it still? And you know, you've been through a lot, you've grappled with a lot, and is there anything else you would share? And this could be your own advice, it could be a book, it could be a resource, anything like that you want to pass on.
Well, definitely join XJew on Reddit.
Yes, exactly.
and listen to Beyond Belief podcast, and because you're really doing a lot of good work, and you might find, and that's exactly really why I wanted to come on, and I'm grateful that you had me on, because I know that I want to pay it forward for someone else who's going through what I'm going through. But honestly, like, this sounds cliche, but listen to your heart. And it's scary. It's going to be really scary for you to do what you're going to do. You're going to be facing, what will the community think? You're going to be facing, what will my family think? Your family will tell you, don't do this, don't shame me in front of my neighbors. You want to, kibud avayim, sure. But if you're being forced into something like this, like, and you really don't believe in it, take the leap. It'll be really hard and it'll suck sometimes, but you will be happier in the long run. That's what I would say.
I would love that. I love that. That's so like straight into the point, and that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah.
My last thing, and you can say no. You're allowed. I wanted to invite you to sing anything that you want.
Oh my God, I love it. What have I been singing? There's a beautiful song from the Gaither Vocal Band. And it completely encapsulates a lot of what Christianity is. The song is called "Sinner Saved by Grace." And it's saying that anyone who's quote unquote sinned, anyone is deserving of grace and love. So the chorus goes, I'm just a sinner, saved by grace, as I stood condemned to death, he took my place. Now I live and breathe in freedom. With each breath of life I take, I'm loved and forgiven. Back with the living. I'm just a sinner, saved by grace.
Amazing. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that.
Of course. Thanks I love that. Thank you so much for asking me to do that.
Of course. If somebody wants to find you or listen to your own podcast, where can they do so?
Sure. If you love Jersey Boys and want to listen to a bunch of really cool Broadway people speak about this amazing show, it's called Silhouettes JB Podcast. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, David. It's been great to have you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was really, really amazing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Belief. If you found the episode inspiring, please share it with others who might benefit from it. And be sure to subscribe to it to get updates about future episodes.